Hours of constant rain had turned the sleepy town of Blackwood's winding, narrow roads into slippery, dark asphalt ribbons that glinted in the flickering streetlights like broken glass. The night was filled with a steady, eerie rhythm that seemed to pulse in time with Mark's restless thoughts as the storm's unrelenting downpour drummed against the rooftops and gutters. Inside his old family home on the outskirts of town, the dust-covered furniture and peeling wallpaper were illuminated by the dim, flickering light of a single lamp. Even though the house had endured storms and seasons for generations, it felt strange and oppressive tonight, like a cage closing in on him. Mark couldn't identify the undercurrent of decay, but it made his skin crawl. The air was heavy with the smell of mold, damp wood, and something slightly metallic. Outside, a persistent, unsettling rhythm reverberated through the deserted halls as the wind ripped through the skeletal branches of old trees, rattling the window panes. After being away from Blackwood for years, Mark had come back because he needed to face the sinister ghosts that had followed his family ever since his sister vanished for no apparent reason. Although it was determined that her death was an accident, Mark had never accepted that this peaceful town was hiding something much darker. The villagers whispered about unexplained disappearances, strange lights flickering in the forest, and a curse that had dogged the Blackwood name for centuries. After the sun set, no one dared to approach the deserted quarry. There, the shadows were said to have a life of their own, consuming the light and warping the very fabric of reality. And the earth was said to weep blood. A dark magnet pulled Mark toward the quarry in spite of the warnings, bringing him nearer to the truth that had long eluded him. A faint scratching at the back door broke Mark's solitude that night, as the old clock in the hallway chimed midnight with a hollow echo. As he walked carefully across the creaking wooden floorboards, his pulse accelerated, each beat thundering in his ears. He could see nothing but the whirling darkness outside as he peered through the frosted glass, his breath fogging the pane, until he noticed a shadowy figure standing still just beyond the dim glow of the porch light. The stranger's face was obscured by the broad brim of a battered hat that seemed to absorb all light, and he was tall and commanding, wearing a thick, dark coat. Mark's instincts told him to back off, lock the door, and put the horrors of the night behind him. But he hesitated, then reached for the handle and opened the door, motivated by a mixture of fear and intense curiosity. Mark felt a chill run down his spine as the figure entered silently and crossed the threshold with an unnatural grace. The air changed as soon as the stranger walked in. The warmth was gone. The lamp's light flickered wildly before going out, leaving the room completely dark. Mark sensed a powerful, ancient, and evil presence hovering over him, whispering secrets in a voice that seemed to slink into his head like smoke curling through a broken window. "You cannot run from what lies beneath," the stranger said in a low, ominous voice that was almost a whisper. Outside, the storm raged with renewed ferocity, thunder trembling the old house's foundations and lightning ripping jagged scars across the sky. When Mark realized that the nightmare he had assumed was over was actually just getting started, his heart began to race. In the darkness that oozed from his ancestral home's walls and floorboards, the shadows that had previously lurked at the periphery of his vision were now drawing closer, observing and waiting. Mark fought to control his breathing as the room grew dark, every nerve yelling in defiance of the oppressive presence pressing down on him like a physical burden. "You cannot run from what lies beneath," the stranger's icy, unrelenting voice replayed in his head. Desperate for any indication of the intruder, Mark's hands trembled as he reached out into the darkness, but all he saw were cold air and shadows that seemed to writhe and pulse with their own life. The floorboards beneath him moaned abruptly, causing a deep, rumbling vibration that echoed throughout the house like a heartbeat. As if flinching from some invisible horror, the walls appeared to close in, and the peeling wallpaper continued to peel. Mark's phone, which had been left on the table, came to life and showed a map of the old quarry on its cracked screen. A red dot blinked at the center of the screen, where the earth was supposed to bleed as it pulsed and zoomed in. Mark was dragged toward the door by an unstoppable force and staggered out into the stormy night. He was immediately soaked by the rain, and as he ran toward the deserted quarry on the outskirts of town, the cold cut through his wet clothing. The forest appeared to close behind him, with trees bending like twisted sentinels protecting a forbidden secret, while the fog hung heavy, drowning out the sound of his footsteps. The ground beneath his feet became mushy and damp as he approached the quarry, as though it had been saturated with a substance much more sinister than rainwater. Unsettling shadows danced on the rocky rocks as a faint glow pulsed from the depths. The air, which smelled of earth and something metallic, blood, grew colder with each step as Mark made his way down toward the source, his heart thudding in his chest. Then shapes appeared out of the darkness, faces twisted with anger and fear, figures twisted in agony, trapped between worlds. Their accusing and pleading hollow eyes met Mark's. Because of the centuries-old curse his family had carried, he came to understand that the Quarry was a prison for tortured souls. "You cannot run from what lies beneath," the stranger's warning reverberated. Then, Mark realized that in order to put an end to the nightmare, he would need to face the evil force that had plagued his family and confront the darkness head-on. He would need to uncover the secrets hidden deep beneath Blackwood. However, he realized that some truths have a terrible cost as the night grew darker and the cries of the damned filled the air. Mark stood at the edge of the quarry, rain dripping into his eyes as the ground trembled beneath his boots. The glow from the pit pulsed like a beating heart, and with every throb, the cries of the damned grew louder, weaving into his mind like threads pulling him apart. The stranger appeared again, now at the rim of the abyss, his face still concealed in shadow. "Your family bound them here," he said, his words slicing through the storm. "It is in your blood, Mark. Only you can break the chain, or feed it." Mark's chest tightened as memories of his sister's disappearance crashed into him, the unanswered questions now forming a single dreadful answer. She had not vanished. She had been taken by this curse, consumed by the quarry itself. Lightning struck nearby, illuminating dozens of shadowy figures climbing up from the depths, their hands reaching, their mouths open in silent screams. The air was heavy, vibrating with an energy that seemed to pull Mark toward the edge. He realized that resisting was futile. The curse wanted him here. His phone flickered again, the red dot now exploding into crimson light before the device shattered in his palm. The stranger extended an arm, his sleeve dripping black water that wasn't rain. "Choose," he demanded, his voice now a chorus of echoes, as though the souls of the quarry were speaking through him. Mark looked down into the chasm and saw his sister's face, pale and pleading, her lips moving though no sound emerged. It wasn't just about ending the curse. It was about freeing her and all the others who had been trapped for generations. But he knew the price. One soul must replace the many. The quarry demanded blood. Mark closed his eyes, rain mixing with his tears, as the decision weighed down on him heavier than the storm itself. He could run, leave Blackwood, and let the curse fester for another century, condemning countless more to its hunger. Or he could give himself willingly, ending the chain and setting the trapped spirits free. His sister's face lingered in the abyss, her eyes filled with sorrow yet also hope. With one final breath, Mark stepped forward, surrendering to the pull. The ground gave way beneath him, and as he fell into the pulsing glow, the anguished wails shifted into a single harmonious cry of release. The storm outside calmed, the rain softened, and silence returned to Blackwood. When dawn came, the quarry was still. The fog had lifted, and the earth no longer bled. The villagers awoke to a strange calm, as though a great weight had been lifted from their lives. The stranger in the dark coat was gone, leaving only an empty hat resting at the quarry's edge. Mark's body was never found, but the curse was broken, the souls set free. For the first time in centuries, Blackwood was quiet. Yet, deep in the stone walls of the quarry, faint whispers remained. A reminder that darkness never truly disappears. It only waits, patient and eternal, for another soul to hear its call. Did you like this video? Let me know in the comments below, and do not forget of subscribing in the channel. See you later.